second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. A suicide car bomber attacks a school bus in Pakistan's rest of Balochistan, killing at least 5 and leaving dozens injured. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Russia claims to have intercepted nearly 160 drones launched by Ukraine over 12 hours. The barrage comes as a ceasefire remains elusive, even after Donald Trump's flurry of phone calls. The United Arab Emirates reaches a deal with Israel to deliver humanitarian aid into Gaza as international pressure mounts on the country to allow life-saving supplies to the besieged strip. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te's party expels 5 members accused of spying for China, including a former aide to the island's national security chief. 5 members accused of spying for China, including a former aide to the island's national security chief. And Tokyo announces plans to waive basic water utility fees this summer to help residents cope with extreme heat. Last year, scorching temperatures claimed a record 263 lives in the Japanese capital. Hello and welcome. Our top focus continues to remain on South Africa and President Cyril Ramaphosa's high-stakes visit to Washington. His visit is seen as an attempt to mend ties that have suffered a razor blow since Trump stormed to power. Now, we have been telling you about that on this show. Ramaphosa meets with President Donald Trump today, and it comes at a volatile time because Trump has repeatedly accused South Africa of persecuting the white minority and has pushed a charge that he believes is white genocide. Ramaphosa's office has now challenged this claim, and South Africa wants Trump to prove it. A statement by the South African presidency reads, "We need to reset the relationship, but more importantly, iron out issues of concern that may exist." Now, the statement further added that some of the claims made by the US are outright disinformation. The onus of backing these allegations and unproven remarks should be taken by the US. That's what the South African government is arguing. On the 12th of May, Trump welcomed home a group of white South Africans and offered them, quote-unquote, refugee status, and they were granted asylum. Their refugee applications were fast-tracked, and these individuals were transported on a chartered flight. Such practices by the US administration are rare. Typically, they involve shackling immigrants, restraining and handcuffing, and labeling them as animals or aliens. So when these white South Africans were resettled, Trump faced questions over the preferential treatment.
I want to ask you about South African refugees. Dozens of Afrikaners who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, right, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white.
While Ramaphosa is looking to salvage trade ties, this is also a major issue that he wants to address with Trump. South Africa says such arguments are damaging to its reputation, and it will strongly object if the US continues with similar resettlement programs. Some Afrikaner groups also claim that the white farmers are being categorically murdered, but South African police say that there's no evidence to support this. Official data shows that most murder victims in South Africa are actually young black men. So that's the first sticking point in the US-South Africa bilateral relations. Another one that could be a roadblock in this episode is South Africa's 2024 genocide case against Israel. It filed a case against Israel at the International Court of Justice because of Israel's military campaign in Gaza. The US, which is a staunch backer of Israel, slammed South Africa for its move. That's when bilateral relations started getting worse. So on one hand, Ramaphosa will look to prioritize trade with Trump. On the other, he will try to defend his country's reputation. South Africa, once a symbol of resistance, now finds itself accused of similar patterns it fought against. Now, for more on this, we have with us on the show Dr. Kwaku Nuama, who is a professor of international studies at the American University, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Allison.
Now, how significant is President Ramaphosa's challenge to the U.S. claims of white persecution in South Africa, particularly in the context of past diplomatic tensions between the two nations?
I don't think it's that big of a deal because these are disputed claims, and he has bigger issues to worry about. So this meeting that he's having in Washington, he needs to just concede a point. He's not going to change Trump's mind on this stuff. Most of Americans don't agree with how the administration has handled this issue. But I think that for a visiting foreign leader, he should just concede a point, promise to do better, and go on to the things that really matter. I don't think that this is a big deal at all.
Right. And Dr. Nuama, what impact could these unproven white genocide claims have on South Africa's global image and its ability to maintain balanced international partnerships, especially with Western nations?
So it could have some negative effects, but generally speaking, these are discredited reports. And because they are discredited, South Africa can actually manage their fallout properly. Actually, I think what's happening is the surfacing of white victimhood narratives serves to remind people of the privileged status that white people enjoyed under apartheid, and it's bringing to fore all the evils of the apartheid era. And that is actually giving the ANC some global sympathy, because now everybody is being reminded of how big of a mess they inherited from all those years of apartheid misrule and the problems that they inherited. And it's actually helping the ANC in terms of being able to blame some of his own, misfortunes on the inherited situation. And also the fact that you still have residual sense of entitlement among the white minority who still dominate the economy in South Africa, serves to remind people of how tough it is to move beyond apartheid and the legacy of apartheid in South Africa. So the ANC, if they play this well, can easily mobilize global support behind this cause. And I don't think that this is something that is going to affect South Africa's image in a negative way, in a sustainably negative way at all. I think that this is something that it comes with context, and it reminds people of how bad things were in South Africa under apartheid and how bad things are and how unreconstructed post-apartheid South Africa still is.
Right. And in your view, what are the key issues that Ramaphosa and Trump are likely to prioritize during this Washington meeting? And how might the persecution narrative influence the tone or the outcome of the discussions?
So the fact that Ramaphosa is here shows that the relationship is important to the United States. United States is South Africa's second largest trading partner, and there's a trade deficit there, and Trump is obsessed with deficits. It's an 8.8 billion trade deficit. South Africa buys less from the United States. There's a reason for that. Trump doesn't want to go into that. He's interested in addressing this deficit. For Cyril Ramaphosa, there is the problem of the tariffs. There's a 30% tariffs on South African exports to the United States, about 25% on export of automobile parts alone. So he needs to focus on that instead of dealing with this side issue of the rights of the sense of grievance among a small minority of the Afrikaner population, which I think Donald Trump is actually exploiting them to placate his white racist base in the United States. And they're going to find out quickly that anything that Trump gives can be taken away by the next president of the United States. The moment Trump leaves office, all of these things go away, the same way that things that Biden gave to people from Venezuela and Haiti has been taken away by Trump. So I hope that he focuses on the things that matter, which is South Africa's economy and how he can maintain a relationship that's beneficial. There are 600 American businesses in South Africa. They have real issues, and those are the things that I think these two leaders need to talk about, and not the side issue of the grievances of a small minority.
Absolutely. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for your valuable insights.
Thanks for having me.
Our next story is from South Sudan, which is now at the center of a legal showdown in the United States. Immigrant advocates in the U.S. have accused the Trump administration of violating a court order by deporting migrants from Asia to South Sudan. According to court filings, nearly a dozen migrants from countries like Myanmar and Vietnam were flown out of a detention center in Texas to South Sudan on Tuesday morning. Lawyers for the migrants filed a motion with U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy, who had earlier barred the administration from deporting migrants to third countries. The federal judge has warned that the Trump administration could be held in contempt of court over these deportations. A Justice Department lawyer responded, saying that one migrant, a Burmese national, had been returned to Myanmar, not South Sudan. She refused to reveal the destination of a Vietnamese migrant, saying that the information was classified. She added that the individual had been convicted of murder. Now, Judge Murphy did not order the plane to return, but stated that the migrants must remain in U.S. custody and be treated humanely, pending a hearing on Wednesday. He said that these removals may violate his earlier order, which requires migrants be given a meaningful opportunity to challenge their deportation before being sent to a third country. This ruling came last month amid reports that the U.S. is planning to deport migrants to Libya, a country engulfed in conflict for over a decade, with widespread reports of migrant abuse. Meanwhile, South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, has faced continued conflict since independence in 2011. Between 2013 and 2018, civil war claimed nearly 400,000 lives. The U.S. State Department strongly warns against travel to the country, citing high risks of crime, kidnapping, and ongoing armed violence. The case also highlights a broader U.S. policy. The Trump administration has been negotiating with multiple nations to accept migrants deported from the United States. While Rwanda has confirmed it is in such talks with the U.S., Benin, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini have also been named in media reports. While the legal standoff plays out in the U.S. courts, the migration issue raises pressing questions about sovereignty, stability, and humanitarian responsibility for African nations. Africa may not be shaping these policies, but it's clearly feeling their impact. How the continent responds and what comes next, we will continue to bring all of the updates. And let's shift focus to Tanzania now. An online storm brewed after the police's official X account was hacked to post false news. In a hoax social media post, the hackers claimed that the president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has died. The post was pulled down quickly after, and officials declared their account was breached. No suspects have been named yet. It didn't end there. The YouTube channel of Tanzania's Revenue Authority was also targeted around the same time. Now, a possible coordinated cyber attack on state-run platforms, but officials have assured that the threat has been contained. Now, following these two hacking incidents, social media platform X was blocked in the country, and reports say that users were unable to access the application until they used a virtual private network or a VPN. Now, this comes at a sensitive time for Tanzania. Elections are due later this year, and political tensions have been rising. President Samia addressed the situation on Monday, saying that Tanzania was facing interference from foreign agents. She didn't name any countries or individuals, but her message was clear. The government will not tolerate outside influence. Just days ago, activists from Kenya and Uganda were deported by Tanzania authorities. They had traveled to support the opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, who is facing treason charges. Now, Lissu is the main opposition candidate in Tanzania, and he is a former member of parliament. The politician is facing charges of treason and has been disqualified from presidential elections after he demanded electoral reforms. While President Samia Suluhu has been praised internationally for softening some of her predecessor's harsh policies, her administration is now facing serious questions about whether democratic space in Tanzania is truly opening up or merely being redecorated. The hacking of official accounts, the deportation of foreign activists, and the continued legal battles of key opposition figures all signal a pre-election season that is already fraught with uncertainty. And for citizens of Tanzania, the months ahead may shape more than just election outcomes. They may define whether the country stays on a path toward reform or returns to a climate of fear and silenced dissent. And our final story focuses on a major milestone in Africa's space ambitions. Africa has officially inaugurated its first continental space agency in Cairo, the capital of Egypt. Named the African Space Agency, it is established under the African Union. The agency opened its doors last month and is currently in the process of setting up and hiring key personnel. It will coordinate existing national space programs across the continent. The agency aims to strengthen Africa's space infrastructure by launching satellites, establishing weather stations, and ensuring data sharing across Africa and beyond. Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions to extreme weather events, which are worsened by climate change. despite contributing far less to global warming than developed countries. Currently, the lack of high-resolution weather and climate data hinder governments from issuing timely warnings, and scientists face challenges in accurately predicting long-term climate trends due to insufficient data detail. The African Space Agency represents a crucial step toward improving climate resilience, satellite infrastructure, and data sharing across the continent. Several African countries have launched satellites that support agriculture, climate monitoring, communications, and disaster response. But none of these satellites have been launched from African soil. Cairo launched the continent's first satellite in 1998, and since then, more than 20 African nations have established space agencies, with 18 of them launching a total of 63 satellites. However, all African satellites to date have been launched from facilities outside the continent, including locations in Russia, Kazakhstan, China, and the United States. The African Space Agency aims to drive continent-wide progress by enhancing space infrastructure, expanding satellite capabilities, and improving access to critical data. Its launch comes amid recent cutbacks in U.S. funding following the dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development, which had been a significant supporter of development programs in Africa. Despite this, the African Space Agency has already forged partnerships with the European Space Agency, collaborating to train experts and to share knowledge on satellite building and data processing. The global space economy is valued at around $469 billion, while Africa's space industry is projected to grow 16.16% to $22.64 by 2026. Now, the African Space Agency is poised to be a key driver of this growth and transformation across the continent. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.